Hey guys, in this week's episode, we are reviewing Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. However, before that, we are talking about the Wes Anderson Netflix shorts based on Roald Dahl stories. I don't know if there's a more eloquent name for them than that. And then Ahsoka. So join us.
To the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and joining me, as always, is Mike, who would never betray me. How you doing today, Mike?
Good. I agree. I would never betray you.
I know you would.
I'm glad you gave me that intro.
You stuck by me in these trying times.
Yeah. There were many times over the years I could have betrayed you.
Sure.
I won't tell you what they were, though. But I didn't do it.
Oh, no. Also joining me is a Judas, a betrayer, someone that betrayed his own town, in fact. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm confused on how I'm a Judas, but please explain. I'm good other than being accused of being a Judas, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't
that
think
new revelation's
you're
crazy.
confused about this at all. Over the last week, there was a certain playoff game, series, in fact, between the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers reside in the DFW area, which is where Mike and I live and grew up. Same with Justin. Justin
yeah,
also
but I think it's important to note that I don't care about them.
That's why you didn't betray me, because you cared.
Yeah, I never cared.
None.
I couldn't betray
you. Apathy is not betrayal.
Yeah. But someone chose the other side simply because he lives in Houston now.
And chooses to live there.
Yeah. Well, he could move back if he wanted to. I mean, I guess he works for NASA, but, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. They aren't in DFW.
It'd be a commute, but you could still live in the DFW area.
Right. Well, to be fair, I was apathetic about baseball until I moved down here, and I'm actually still pretty apathetic about baseball, but only join in because I'm in Houston, and it's fun to join in when everybody else is excited about something.
You're a joiner.
Yeah. I'm not a Judas, I'm a joiner.
Well, you joined the wrong team this time.
Okay. Yeah, so, clearly.
Yeah, they did lose.
Yeah, you win, so be happy, be satisfied.
Yeah.
And they are cheaters, right?
Texas, probably.
Well, Texas encompasses a lot. It also encompasses Houston. So
not in this context, buddy. Anyways,
if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news that we have been watching or just want to specifically talk about. Then we move into our feature review. This week, like I said at the top of the show, we are discussing Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes, and one of the things we like to do here on the Casual Cinecast is every other week we do what we call a Casually Criterion episode. On these episodes, in order to set them up, we each, the hosts, Mike, Justin, and I, pick a movie from the Criterion Collection, and then we put it out onto the interwebs. X, Twitter, whatever. It'll probably be something new when Elon Musk ruins Twitter. But for now, it's there, and we each pick a movie. We let you guys, the fans of our show, vote on what the next movie will be. So, our last movie was Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, and make sure that, and then we have a new vote that was based on the Martin Scorsese movies that are in the Criterion Collection. Mike, tell me, what won?
All right. So, based on the theme of Scorsese, let's go ahead and go over the options real quick. Raging Bull, Age of Innocence, Last Temptation of Christ. I think we all know before I even announce it which one won.
After Hours is a shock. Write-in vote.
Yeah, it was a write-in
After
vote.
Hours won by write-in.
Oh, that'd be great.
JK.
No one chose After Hours, although I don't know why. It's good. I blame you guys.
I just watched it. That's why I didn't choose it.
Yeah. Anyway, Raging Bull won with 44%, followed by The Age of Innocence. Oh, actually, nope, these are not in order. Followed by The Last Temptation of Christ with 31%, and then Age of Innocence with 25%. Probably what I would have guessed.
Yep. Played out to a T.
I forget what I picked. Which one? I
You
know
chose
Innocence.
Age of Innocence.
Oh, okay.
But you tend to have the hipstery pick all the time.
Yeah. I am a hipster. I have a hip.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
All right. So as we've said, the polls to vote in our Criterion films, they are on Twitter/X. So follow us there at Casual Cinecast. If you want to send us any messages, ask us any questions about the movies we're reviewing, you can send DMs to that account, or you can email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so, you like the show, go on to whatever platform you listen to podcasts on and give us a positive rating, positive review, and we will be forever grateful.
That's true. We will. Okay. And with that, I say we move the show forward and get into news on the march.
Yeah.
All right.
That seems appropriate.
I agree.
That's what's in the notes.
News on the march.
All right, guys. So the first thing we are going to be talking about today is the collection of short films that were recently released by Netflix, all directed by Wes Anderson, and all adaptations of Roald Dahl, right? Is that how you say it?
I think it's Rolled.
Roald Dahl?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
Not Roland.
I know. That felt wrong as it was coming out, but to be fair,
Yeah.
Roald is a weird name. Okay.
It is. But you'd be adding letters in there to make it Roland
I know.
that don't exist.
I know. That's true. Well, they exist, just not in that name. Okay. So, is there by the way, while we're on the subject of this, is there a better, catchier name for these collection of short films?
I like to refer to them as the Wes Anderson shorts. Wes Anderson short.
Yeah. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it's really easy to say and not awkward at all.
Yeah. And people know exactly what it is when you do that. Mm-hmm. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. Even when you guys watched this, was there did you just click on one tile that gave you all four, or was
No.
there four separate
No.
tiles?
So here's the thing. I only knew about the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. I did not know that there were three other ones. Right? So I looked up that one. And then when it was over, I saw that it was recommending other ones to me. And I was like, wait, what is this?
Nice.
And then
I
realized what was happening.
knew about all four, but to get to the next one, after I watched one, I would always have to go to the recommended next or whatever.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
I had to search it out type of thing.
They were not under one sort of umbrella, if that's your question.
The other question I would have is, which one did you watch first?
Ratcatcher for me.
I already told you that, but I'll say it again.
Yeah.
The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Then I
Yeah.
did Swan, Ratcatcher, and then the last one, Poison.
Yeah, I did The Wonderful World of Henry Sugar, and
Wonderful Story.
Wonderful Story. I did that one, and then I did the Ratcatcher. But I'm glad I did the Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar first, because it's the longest. It kind of
Yeah.
introduces you to a lot of things.
It's
that
like a
flow
little
into
third
the
of a
other
Wes
ones.
Anderson movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I did it. I did the shorts first, the shortest ones first, and then Henry Sugar last. But mainly because when I went to watch it, I was breaking it up over 2 nights. And the first night when I went to watch, I had a smaller amount of time, so I watched 2 of the shorter ones first. I did Ratcatcher, The Swan, Poison, and then Henry Sugar. Yeah. I don't know if it
You
makes a
said you did the
difference.
Swan first?
No, Ratcatcher first.
Oh, Ratcatcher
then,
first.
Then Swan, then Poison,
Okay.
then Henry Sugar.
All right. So, cool. What did we all think of them?
I personally liked them all. I thought they were entertaining. They were fun. They were, very, I don't know, just reminded me of that very French New Wave style that Wes Anderson kind of already has, but leaning into it even more with this sort of
Sure.
breaking the fourth wall and the narrator. sort of thing. So it had that vibe that I always enjoy, and I liked the vibe of the narration happening between dialogue and stuff.
Me too.
Especially
cool.
when it was timed out really well with them saying like he said between two people talking. So even with those little short insertions, it gave it a lot of energy that I think helped keep them moving. And outside of that, they're all charming. I feel like the short stories themselves and these all feel very allegorical, and I'm not sure based on one viewing where I'm not being very analytical that I fully grasp what they're all about on some deeper level. But I feel like it's there to go back to and figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I agree with that. Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, it's very similar. I enjoyed them. They're very fun and like I would say whimsical. Like it's just kind of. I liked how, especially like the wonderful story of Henry Sugar. You start off with. You go down like the minds of the storytelling. Like you start off with one story, then we move into the next story. Like we have like bookends of bookends of bookends. It's like a Russian nesting doll, and that was kind of in his last movie there a little bit, but we just have like this, and then we work our way back out. Or like the
it was in Grand Budapest Hotel as well.
Yeah,
we go in a couple layers before we get to the
it's like the not incest, the inception of storytelling.
Freudian slip, am I right?
I guess.
I hope not.
But yeah, I love how you go down these layers and then you get down the road of one story and we move into a new one, and then once that last one is told, we start moving our way back, and I think that's a lot of fun. And that's a thing that Wes Anderson always is playing around with, I think, in general, is like that story. And I love how the stagehands are showing up and like setting the stage, and how the characters, the same actor is playing a different character, like it's a theater troupe. It's just really a lot of fun.
The stagehand bringing props in and out of scene as needed, just like taking them from characters was fun.
Yeah. And sometimes props are just straight up invisible.
Well, yeah, that was that the Swan that was that way? But
I know there was Ratcatcher.
Oh, maybe it was Ratcatcher.
Yeah, there was some invisible propery happening.
Yeah, and there's a section of Ratcatcher where we switch to like it being rats or something, right? Like telling the story.
Claymation,
suddenly. Yeah.
Or maybe not claymation is not the right word, but
stop motion.
Stop motion.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. What did you think, Mike? We haven't really.
I thought these were all great. To be honest with you, I really liked Asteroid City earlier this year, but I wasn't super crazy about French Dispatch. I like it, but I didn't love it. But I see a lot of like a pattern forming in Wes Anderson at this point in his career, where he seems to like little vignettes. He likes stories within stories. He likes playing with structure increasingly. Asteroid City's a little bit like that. French Dispatch was like that. And then now he's just doing short stories. Like, they could have thrown all these together as one anthology film and thrown it in theaters if they wanted to make a little bit of money,
Right.
Yeah. I like it like this. And I think French Dispatch is basically a series of short films.
Yeah.
With a framing device around it. But I actually kind of like this better.
Me too.
Because once one's done, I can, like Justin did, go on to the, go to sleep, watch the next one the next night. And you don't feel like, oh, man, I'm stopping in the middle of a movie,
Yeah. The only thing I wish differently, I love like each one being accessed. I wish it would have been under like almost like a mini series, right? Where they'd have been like anthology episodes. That way they were grouped under one umbrella, like you were saying, because they would make them feel like a body of work in and of itself.
I agree.
Right? These short films would all collectively be under the umbrella of the Roald Dahl, Wes Anderson, shorts that aren't, the Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is obviously its own thing.
Wes Anderson, by the way.
Damn it. It's so easy. I don't know how I forgot.
I don't know. I don't either.
But anyway, I really like these better than his last two feature films. I think they're really strong. I think my favorites are The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and Poison. I think Poison might be my favorite.
Yeah. That's the only one I gleaned a deeper meaning from, and I could be very wrong, but like, I enjoyed viewing it from the perspective of like when you just don't want to get out of bed because of like anxiety.
Well, I think that one also, there's a lot of clues about the social dynamics at play, like in the place that they are in, you know, and the way characters treat one another, and what class of person that they seem to be, you know. I think there's a little bit of that in The Ratcatcher too. Maybe a little bit in Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, but I think there are themes connecting all these works more than getting analytical and deeper meaning in that way. I think what I take from this is what themes the Wes Anderson's interested in exploring. But I really like them. Which is your favorite, Chris?
I think the Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar is my favorite, and it gets the longest to cook. It's the longest one.
There's most going on in there.
Yeah, I think you also get a lot from you get the most from the actors too. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is really good in it. Ben Kingsley and Dev Patel all really shine in this one. I think that's kind of where it really shined through for the narration, like he said. You know, like Dev Patel, I thought did a really great job with that as he was narrating it.
He was great.
I also want to shout out like Richard Ayoda, I believe is how you pronounce his name, from the IT crowd. He's kind of doing these weird things, and I like seeing him show up here.
Justin,
so
what's your favorite?
Justin? Yeah.
I think my favorite was also Poison. My least favorite is probably The Swan.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for me.
But the difference between them all for me is pretty small.
Sure.
Because I enjoyed them all pretty equally. I think like I kind of determined that on if I were to go back and watch another one, just to watch something real quick, I would probably do Poison first. You know, That's the one I'd be most excited to revisit. But it's pretty minimal differences. The one thing I have to say, I don't know how you guys feel about the cinematography on this one, and not so much in the composition and camera work, because it's pretty par and usual for Wes Anderson. But the look that he has in this film in terms of contrast and color, and same in Asteroid City, I don't think I'm vibing with it. Like it feels off to me, the sort of like low contrast, and I don't know if it's more of a personal problem, but I don't love the way these last two things have looked.
Like all four of these?
Yeah, there's like a faded look to it, and like the blacks don't seem very black; they're very gray.
It's kind of like a washed out almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
the low end,
like a wear
is
and
washed
tear.
out.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem worn. I don't think it's.
I don't have a problem with it though.
I don't have a problem with it. I actually enjoyed the look of Asteroid City.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I don't necessarily follow you down that road on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty subjective. I don't necessarily think it's like is this bad? It's more of just saying that it's a quality that I don't think it looks particularly good.
I also think it's a detail that you, in particular, like in your line of work and things that you have done, would be more annoyed by than people that aren't necessarily in that. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But yeah.
But all in all, I'd say they are very strong. I would watch more of these. I think they were like, yeah, that's the thing is like between all of them, I don't feel like there was a drop in quality.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't one that was like, that one. But the rest of them are pretty good. You know, like most anthologies usually have one that, you know, isn't quite as strong or something like that. Like all of these, I feel like I would understand if it was someone's favorite.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of not lumping them together in an anthology is like you don't have to compare as much, you know, and you don't. I don't know. You kind of view them each on their own and how you feel on their own versus considering them all as a full ride. I think it's easier to be like, well, I remember being, you know, most uninterested during this one, or you feel those valleys and peaks more, in my opinion.
That makes sense. Yeah. Do we think any of these, and if so, which are going to be nominated for an Oscar?
If any of them, it'll be The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar.
Yeah.
I agree, but the other plus is now he has 4 submissions that he can make, and really, you know, really pad himself as getting an Oscar nom.
Has he ever gotten an Oscar before? I got for like screenplay or anything?
I don't think so.
I don't know. If he did, it was probably like
early on,
or something. He's a best animated feature. He's been nominated for.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. With Fantastic Mr. Fox.
You see one.
I don't think he's won. And then the other one would be The Isle of Dogs. I don't think he won for that either.
Yeah, I don't think he won for Fantastic Mr. Fox. I think it would have been. Was it Up Against Up?
Maybe. Yeah, 2009, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, anything else we want to say about these Wes Anderson short films before we move on?
Nope, I don't think so. Let's
cool.
Go.
All right. So next on the docket, Ahsoka, which we were supposed to talk about in the last episode until Justin vetoed it at the last minute.
Only because I knew we'd talk about it for a long time and probably longer than our feature review.
Yeah, which we're gonna have to not do this time.
Yeah, no. We'll keep it. We'll try to keep it short, which will be still long. But let's go.
All right,
Ahsoka.
Let's do it. So it's been over for a minute now. Where are you sitting with it, Justin?
I loved it when we last talked about it, which I think was after episode 5. And now I super love it now that it's all over.
Okay.
I think it's great. I think it's, you know, it's a bit unfair because even though it's the first season of a series, it's very much season 5 and continuing the Rebels story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's leaning on a lot, but it's still probably, I think, the best Star Wars.
Yeah.
That is very Star Warsy, you know? I think there's an argument. Someone's going to come in and say Andor's the best Star Wars, which is probably true. But
it's the best Star Wars for adults, not for...
Yeah. In terms of Jedi's, the Force, lightsabers, that sort of thing, the more mythological elements of Star Wars, it's the best in my opinion. I think it's really great. It has me super excited. It has me rewatching a bunch of Star Wars that I just recently watched just because I was already like deep in the Star Wars love and absorbing everything I could, but it somehow in the midst of that like reignited my spark even more. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I can't wait for season 2, even though I think it's going to be a while before we get it.
Yeah, there's still a strike happening, so
yeah, it's just so cool, and that's the best thing I'd say about it. It's just cool. So, Mike, where are you at?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I enjoy all this stuff pretty much. So yeah, I'm not any different than you in that regard. I think that Ahsoka was a good time, though I'm sympathetic to people who aren't huge Star Wars fans. Not getting enough from this show. Like I get that. I don't have that problem because I have seasons of, you know, content giving me the emotional hook that I need. So I know a lot of people don't have that, and I've heard people's opinions vary. You know, I've seen or I've talked to people at work who like it, but they're not enthusiastic about it. And I've talked to people who think it's really cool. Then I've talked to some people who find it really boring. And I understand that. All that to say is, like, I don't know if the show did the best job at reeling in new fans. Mm-hmm. But as far as satisfying what I want, I think it did a good job.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for what's next.
Yeah. It's built on 200 episodes of 2 other Star Wars shows, right? Albeit animated shows. It's like, you're never going to measure up or match up. So, like, I could understand you're probably always going to feel left out or lesser than if you, like, in terms of excitement, if you haven't watched all of that. Compared, like, if you're comparing yourself, you're like, well, clearly have some level of disappointment, or I'm not experiencing this on the same level as, like, someone who has seen all of it. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, you never know if you're, like, missing, valuable context. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, like, whenever this Mandoverse thing continues towards the inevitable movie, if they are going to be able to, like, give the average audience member enough emotional investment to care. Or,
sure.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at. But as far as me, like, I think it's great. This is more of what I want. I like the mythological side of Star Wars. I think that maybe, I know that Marvel's undergoing, like, some big, huge TV changes. I wonder if that's going to extend to the Star Wars shows. I'm not sure, because as far as I can tell, I think the Star Wars shows are doing better in reception than the Marvel shows have been. But I don't know if that's true or not. But that's what it seems like from where I'm standing. So I don't know if Disney's going to tamper with how they've been doing things. But I can see Disney, like, wanting to add, like, other writers. So it's not just Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni doing all of this,
Sure. Mm-hmm. I feel like the reception for the Star Wars show, I feel like we're an outlier. Like, we like it more than most people, at least that have a podcast,
Well, no, I don't think that, like, critics or whatever. I mean, they've got good scores on Rotten Tomatoes as I'm looking at them now. Like,
okay.
Like, Ahsoka is, like, 88% fresh. And
wow.
The lowest Mando one is, like, 85, I think. So critically they've been received well, but I think there's a unique thing about Star Wars where, like, even if it's received well critically, all you're going to see online about it is just arguing and complaining.
Sure.
So I don't know if being on Twitter accurately represents what the average person thinks. You know what I mean? But
probably
that said, I think that the Star Wars shows, what I'm basically saying is, like, critically and numbers viewing wise, I think these are doing better than your average MCU. But maybe I'm just letting Secret Invasion.
Like recency bias,
because Secret Invasion was an absolute train wreck.
I never watched it, and I don't know that I will.
I watched the first episode.
Astoundingly bad.
I'm enjoying Loki so far, but
yeah, Loki season 3's been fun so far, but I think that's, like, the biggest hit they've had.
Yeah, this season 2, right? Not 3.
Yeah, season 2. Yeah, sorry, we're on episode 3. I was just thinking.
Gotcha. Yeah, Chris, did you have anything to add on like your feelings? I know you're the least of the Star Wars nerds, which is not to say that you don't like Star Wars, because I know you do.
I think. I like it. I had a good time with it. I think Mike is right to be like, it's not necessarily welcoming new people in with open arms. Even I've seen all the Clone Wars and the what was the other one? The Rebels.
Yeah, you clearly remember them well.
It made a mark. But when I watched this one, and I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast or not, but, like, or if it was offline, but, like, I was like, when did Ahsoka train Sabine to be a Jedi? And that never really happened. And I thought I had just forgotten it. Does that make sense? So I can only imagine that everything that's happening, they just feel, if you're coming in fresh, you feel left out. You're like, oh, when did that happen? Or when, you don't know any of this stuff,
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily real easy to join in real easy. And even I remember I had a conversation with Justin about like there's a thing in the end episode. I was like, where did that come from? Like and then he talked about this one episode of Clone Wars, I think it was, that it tied into. So as someone, it's maybe not as hardcore, but has watched all of it, I still sometimes lose the thread of like all the mythology and stuff. So yeah, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. I had some problems at the beginning, the first couple of episodes that went away. That middle episode was really good. There's two of them, I think, that I really liked. It was the one where she goes into she meets with Anakin, and then there's the one after that I thought were both really good. So I really enjoyed it as well. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, even if this is continued in an Ahsoka season 2, like what if this is continued in like, and because I know they have a bunch of different ones planned, like, but what if they continue like in another series? Like it's just all Star Wars now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how they work it. And you're right. There's a lot of like industry changes that might also change like plans, So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this when the Boba Fett show was airing, which is the way they treated that show and the way they're treating all the Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni shows. Mm-hmm. I don't think they care. I think they're just making arcs. Like the Clone Wars was told in arcs. You know what I mean? For a lot of it. Like you'd get a full story and then they'd move on to the next story. It feels like right now they're just sort of going through arcs, and all of these shows are being like labeled something because Disney wants new content. But like I don't know that they're approaching them any differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like to them it's all Star Wars the live action TV show. And then Disney is going to slap whatever label they want. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they're planning shows and arcs and things, but basically it's like, yeah, they'll tell, like as we've seen, they will tell huge important bits of story in someone else's show. They will put lore in there that you may not remember from the Clone Wars. It's because I think they've even talked about this, that we live in a day and age where if you don't know what it is, all it takes is, logging onto the internet and seeing people talk about it, and then you're all caught up. Mm-hmm. So I think that's how they're approaching it, for better or worse. I don't know if that's going to be different after these strikes or whatever, because you're right in the sense that like there is a lot of, I've seen backlash towards this. Like I think Ahsoka's one of the best received Star Wars things in a while amongst the people who love it. And there are more than like I would say like the sequel trilogy has. But I don't know that it's enough to just cater to them. So
right.
Yeah. I do think I could see there's a talk of all these different shows like the Ahsoka show, Mandalorian, culminating in a movie. And I think there's enough stuff here where if we get the Mandalorian to hang out with Ahsoka, I can see a push towards, like the heir to the empire type conclusion of a movie, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm wondering if, and then look, if you haven't watched Ahsoka, I don't know why you're listening to this, but skip ahead. I'm wondering if Thrawn will show up in Mando season 4 before we even get Ahsoka season 2.
Well, that's pretty possible. They were definitely looking for him in season 3, so.
Right. So I'm wondering if they're just going to, that's how they're going to get Thrawn introduced to the masses.
Yeah.
Like, Ahsoka didn't get the viewer numbers that Mandalorian gets. What'd you say, Justin?
So, well, they can involve Thrawn in Mandalorian and whatnot without having to have Ahsoka around too.
Right.
Because
she's busy.
And really keep it the Mandalorian and not some weird hybrid, because, they're in different galaxies. So I think... I mean, I guess we'll see what happens if we get the movie first. I don't know if we're getting movie or.
I bet we get at least that Skeleton Crew show. I bet we get a season 2 of Ahsoka and a season 4 of Mando before we get that movie.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot to do based on the way season 2 of Ahsoka ends.
Sure.
Or season 1, you mean?
Or season 1, yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I think the other thing too is talking about the character of Balin, and I'm curious what they'll do with that because it ends with such a big cliffhanger, and it seems like he's off to do something really important. So I imagine they're going to do a recasting, but just want to say that like I hope that that's what they do, and I don't think versus try to like write it out or something, or do the Rise of Skywalker where they take like outtakes and digitally use alternate lines and outtakes to cobble scenes together.
They'll just use takes from Black Sails as him as
It's like, why does he have a big beard all of a sudden?
I will say he is the MVP of this show. I think that character and the actor playing him was really good. Some of the best moments were him and Ahsoka facing off. Like the tension before the dams burst, before they actually start fighting, like the samurai type, they get their positions ready and everything. A lot of that was really cool stuff. Stuff I liked a lot. I'm going to miss that character. I don't know who you cast or, whoever you cast has a lot to live up to.
Yeah. It won't be easy, but yeah, I think they have to recast. There's clearly too much writing on that character to...
Yeah. I kind of expected it to end his character because I knew he passed away, so I expected like a final thing for him, but no, he's still got a lot more to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I think my MVP of like things that I've come away most excited about is just the Night Sisters and Dathomir being in live action and seemingly going to have an important role in this live action stuff going forward. I think that's the thing that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I think what's cool and here's where I'm going to get probably the nerdiest I'm going to get on this subject for the time being, for this episode at least. I think what's exciting is, as someone who's been keeping up with the content, I think it's cool that they're either capitalizing on seeds that were planted in other media, or it was planned and the other media planted the seeds for this. Either way, it works out great because there's a video game called Jedi Fallen Order where you run around the planet of Dathomir and there are ruins for an old civilization that match up with a lot of the ruins that we see in this other galaxy that we spend time in Ahsoka. And
yes.
Some of the runes translated actually talk about characters that were mentioned in that game, like a Darth. One of the Darths is mentioned in runes in Ahsoka in one of the episodes, I think episode 6 or something like that. So I think it's really cool that the media like helps to reinforce the history, right? Like the world feels lived in, it feels accurate. It feels like there's connective tissue between the things, like not enough to where you need to have seen or played Fallen Order to understand that in Ahsoka. But the fact that there's so much about Dathomir was wrapped up in Ahsoka, and that exact same species happens to be on the planet on a video game that came out years ago, Mm-hmm. I enjoy the connectivity, and I enjoy the thought and the care that goes into doing things like that because it rewards you for keeping up with it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it helps to, like some of the people I know that have watched Ahsoka that like Star Wars but have basically only seen the live action and the movies. Mm-hmm. Like when you introduce hyperspace traveling whales, there's a reluctance or like a what, That's
I had someone shake their head at me when they were talking about it. They didn't like that at all.
Yeah, but it's a thing that you question less, I think, when you experience it in animation first.
Sure.
Or like a video game. Like you can introduce wilder concepts, I think, in animation or other forms, and then bring them to live action. And for those who have followed,
well, and I also
it's established.
I also think it's what element of Star Wars do you attach to and do you remember in your brain, right? Like a lot of people, when they think of Star Wars, they think of like Andor or Rogue One style. To them, they remember it in their brain as this action, gritty, military action thing that it never really was. But then what I like to look at is the fantasy elements of it all. Like, it's not science fiction and it's not an action movie. You know what I mean? It's always been sort of the hero's journey and taking things from fantasy and putting, a science fiction sheen on it. And I think this show is more of what I think, like, when you're dealing in terms of like mythology, I think Star Wars works better. And I think that's what the style that Mandalorian's told in, because characters are almost archetypes. Like Din is his name, and it means, like, I think if you look up Din, it's like a religious person, right? Is what that translates to in the real world. So it's like what they're doing is like, yeah, it's not perfect all the time, and it's a little bit rough edges, and it's not going to be a traditional show, but they're telling it in such a simple mythological way that it ties in and keeps the themes going that I think made the original trilogy work to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people, like, if you're going to buy into space whales or star whales, I think it's, do you remember Star Wars as like this gritty military thing, or do you remember it as like a science fiction fantasy where it basically starts with once upon a time, like that's basically what a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away means. Right. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think it just depends on what, if you're going to go along with that, I think it depends on like what you're looking for out of this particular IP.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm here for all of it personally.
Sure.
I like both.
Yeah, why not?
I like Andor and Ahsoka.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a perfect world, there's room for both, Sure.
Yeah.
And the audience would just inherently get it, that they're doing different things. But sometimes I'm not convinced that that's the case. Yeah.
Well, the worst part about Star Wars is not the stuff they put out, but the people that
discourse
watch
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I see like people just like trashing on Star Wars, no matter whether I happen to understand or agree with their point, I just block them. Immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no time, and I do it a lot because, like, I guess Star Wars kind of algorithms its way right to my feed, and I see a lot of negative opinions, and I'm just like, blocked.
You would
no
think,
time for this.
Yeah, you would think that if you haven't liked a single thing that they put out in the last 30 years, you would just stop talking about it, but apparently not. But anyway.
Yeah. All right. I think we're done with that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we got it out. We got it done in shorter time than you anticipated.
True. Way to go, us.
Yeah.
Yay.
Good
I'm
job.
proud.
All right. So here we go. Moving on to the feature review, Killers of the Flower Moon, starting now.
The Osage. They have the worst land possible. But they outsmarted everybody. The land had oil on it. Black gold. Money flows freely here now.
When this money started coming, we should have known it came with something else. They're like buzzards circling our people. We're still warriors.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
See what about them?
See who's doing it.
All right. So as always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front where we'll talk about our general thoughts and feelings on the film, and we'll give you a warning, an alert. We'll play a bumper before we move into spoilers so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go watch Killers of the Flower Moon, and come back and finish listening.
Thank you, Justin. You nailed it the first time, as always.
Never a mistake over here.
Yeah, not once. Never will either. Okay, anyways. Killers of the Flower Moon was directed by Martin Scorsese. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. The IMDb synopsis says, when oil is discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation land, the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the mystery. technically, I don't think they were called the FBI at that point in time, as the movie.
They were created for this specific purpose. I thought that was like what the book is named.
But
is like,
remember in the movie, he's like, "We're the Bureau of Investigation."
Yeah, it's not federal or anything.
It was the proto FBI, sort of. Anyway,
Yeah.
Anyways,
Wow.
way to screw it up,
blame
IMDb.
me. I just copied and pasted from IMDb.
the most accurate source on the internet, so it wasn't your fault.
Yep. I think Scorsese wrote that himself.
Yeah, that was what's submitted. That was the what do you call it? Slug line, log line.
Logline.
Yeah. Sure. Anyways,
Did you guys see that Martin Scorsese joined Letterboxd today?
yeah, I started following him.
Yeah, me too.
I did. I sent him angry messages.
About this log line.
Nope. About not even about anything to do with him. Just my general things that
just
make me
just
mad.
about
going on
Star
with you?
Wars.
Nothing to do with film. Him. Not Star Wars. Star Wars doesn't make me mad.
Oh.
The Texas Rangers.
Okay.
Just vented about that. Anyways, this movie. Who wants to go first on talking about it? Chris. I think Mike and I kind of talked too much about Ahsoka, so
Yeah, you did.
get your time in. What did you think of this movie?
I liked it.
But I had one more thought on Ahsoka first.
Go ahead, Mike. No, this is one that I don't know. I've been looking forward to for a long time. Martin Scorsese, any movie we get from him is an opportunity to see something new from a director I love. Whether it's good or bad, it's going to be something interesting. This is good, if not long. I walked away from this movie thinking I really wanted an intermission. I wanted to take just like a 5-minute break in the middle of this movie or a 10-minute break, just to kind of like go to the bathroom and, I don't know. It's a long movie. It's 3.5 hours. I just wanted an intermission. I don't necessarily think it needs to be shorter, but
Yeah, I wish movies over 2 hours and 45 minutes had intermission.
Yeah. But that being said,
I'd argue it could be longer, honestly, but we'll get there.
but at that point it should be like a TV show. But yeah, this movie is beautiful. I think that there is, there's not the green screen, at least that I could tell, but there are some shots in here that recreate the world of the 1920s, Oklahoma, that are just beautiful, that do a great job. There's imagery shots, shots that are representative of other things that are also just abstract, I guess is the word I was looking for. Abstract shots that are just great in this movie. I think this is an important story, and I think we can discuss the perspective of the story and stuff like that. But I think I enjoyed, or not enjoyed, enjoyed is the wrong word, but I liked how it was told. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this movie. I think Justin, what did you think? We'll go further into my thoughts later on. I just don't want to jump into the spoilers or anything. But yeah, if this is all you're going to listen to, go watch this movie. It's worthwhile. This could be the last one. You don't know how often you're going to get to go to see this movie in the theater. Go see it in the theater. It reminds me a lot of Stanley Kubrick movies that I see in the theater that are also long, but are also beautiful, like this movie. So, Justin, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of liking it. I think it's quite good. I think it's probably really great. And in my opinion, if it's short of great, it's almost because of me wanting more, and despite its runtime, maybe finding some areas that I'm unsatisfied in how much we covered, but at that same time, the movie's 3.5 hours long, and if it gets longer, you probably start making more people even mad. But personally, I think this movie moves, and I didn't really feel the runtime. I was very well aware of the runtime because it's been talked about, but watching it, it didn't seem long.
I
to
didn't
me.
feel it because I was gearing up for a 3.5 hour experience going into it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess if you're ready for that, and the movie moves quickly.
If I didn't know that, and I found myself 2.5 hours into this thing and being like, there are no signs that this thing is wrapping up anytime soon.
Yeah,
then
if you had
maybe
no
I
idea,
feel
you're
different.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Yeah. But I've seen short films at film festivals that feel longer than this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Me too.
So I would be down for more, but that's like, if I have any complaints or I get into stuff, it's probably like just things that I feel like we could have had more of, because everything we get, I think, is great. The performances are all wonderful. As Chris said, it's really well shot. The production and everything, it feels great. If there's any CG, which I assume there is, to fill out some places, it's pretty seamless.
Removing some telephone poles here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's mainly what it's used for.
Maybe there's like a really wide shot of them driving through some land where there's a bunch of oil derricks, and there's probably like 80 to 100 oil derricks in shot, and I'm assuming they didn't build all those. Things like that. This is a story I'm very unfamiliar with. I didn't read the book. So I think if that's the purpose of this movie, to tell this story that needs to be told, I think it's, I'm grateful for it. Right. And it does have the similar vibes. I think this is a thing that was more well known at the time, but similar to when we got the first episode of the HBO Watchmen series, covering the Black Wall Street Tulsa. Happenings and atrocity, right? And learning about that, and it became like a mainstream thing. I think because as we've covered, the FBI, this was the beginnings of that. This is probably a more well-known thing, but I personally didn't know it. So like, it's one of the, it feels like that sort of situation where now it's this thing that I know about, and I think a lot more people will probably know about because of this movie. So, I don't know if that's like the purpose of the movie, but it serves that purpose for me. So it's one of the reasons that, I would say that I really enjoyed the movie was just I'm learning about this situation and learning about this part of history that I wasn't aware of. And that's always a good thing in my opinion.
They even mentioned the Tulsa. It's very similar to the Black Wall Street Tulsa stuff.
Yeah.
So.
You have the scene in this movie, which I was already thinking about it before that scene popped up where they talk about it, but just kind of reaffirmed that in my head. But I think it's just another great film from Scorsese. That's pretty much it for me. So Mike, what are your thoughts?
He hated it.
Yeah. Disappointed. No, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I'm sure surprising nobody. This was, I believe, on 3 most anticipated episodes that we've recorded in my most anticipated movies. Been waiting for this movie for a while.
Yeah.
For a while, it looked like it was just going to be that one picture of Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone sitting at a table.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got for a very long time. There are some memes about it going around that I've seen. But, here's the thing. I'm not going to add much that you guys haven't already said. I'm a big fan of Scorsese. I think this is a very strong Scorsese film. I think the subject matter, although, in my opinion, sadder than watching something like Goodfellas or Casino, I guess what I would say is, it's like Justin. It's like there's a heaviness to this one that doesn't exist in those movies, where it's like it's not just gangsters killing each other. This is sad and disturbing in a way that I don't think those movies are, And Scorsese's always good at making violence feel shocking or upsetting. But I think this movie, given that a lot of the people who get hurt are innocent people. I think it's more disturbing, I guess, than the typical Scorsese movie, even though I don't think it's particularly more violent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
main
think
character,
it feels less violent to me than some.
Right, but it feels darker and more disturbing.
It's more impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Leonardo DiCaprio's character alone has enough like disturbing dualities to him that you don't necessarily see in a lot of Scorsese, like especially his gangster films.
Sure.
But
the compartmentalization that guy's got going on in his brain is crazy, how he can dissociate himself from some things and care about others. But we'll get into that. But yeah, no, this is a super strong film. It's beautiful the way it's filmed. It's long. The score's great. The actors are all great. Like I said, I don't really have a whole lot new, so we can go ahead and kind of keep it short. But basically, I will say that I think this is like upper tier Scorsese. I wouldn't want to rank it right now, but I think, like Justin said, like it's almost great, and it may get there for me with repeated viewings. I'm not quite sure yet.
For me, I think this is the movie closest to like something like Kubrick. Like it will only deepen the more I watch it. Like I would like to see this movie again because I think I'm going to have a better and deeper appreciation of it the second time, like a Kubrick movie, like. You watch Barry Lyndon the first time, you're like, that movie was like, okay, you know, like there's natural lighting in it and stuff like that. But you watch it a second time and a third time, you're like, oh, you know, I really like this movie. I feel the same thing about this movie.
Sure. Or I was thinking maybe like, it's like, I got There Would Be Blood vibes from this. Maybe it's the oil subject matter, but it feels like a uniquely American movie.
Sure. Yes.
Like,
and
yeah. So I don't know. It's very interesting in that way that time period in America and exploring certain filmmakers who dive into that period and what they latch onto about that era of like big oil and expansion and capitalism and the, you know, greed basically. And I think it's fascinating. It would be a great double feature, although it'd be like 6 hours.
It'd be an all day.
It'd be like 7 hours before you did
long.
that. But anyway, I got There'll Be Blood vibes, which is cool because I love that movie. And I guess I'll wrap it up there, but very good.
Yeah. It's like similar territory of greed, like you said. I get it. Be a greed double feature.
Yeah.
Be taxing, I think. Although I would do There Will Be Blood second because it's a little more easygoing, I think. Because this one, this is maybe a segue into talking about, for if anybody hasn't seen it, is that like it can be pretty disturbing. And I've seen, you know, several accounts, both people I know and people online, talking about how disturbing the deaths are. So maybe that's like a warning if you haven't seen the movie yet.
Sure. Yeah. If this is a subject matter that's sensitive to you, then that's probably a good thing to know before going into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know if we can totally get into the conversations about that without being in spoilers.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you can get what we're talking about through the synopsis. There are a bunch of murders and you know who's being murdered, but I say we wait till spoilers, I guess. Is there anything else we want to talk about in non-spoilers?
I don't really have anything.
Here's something I'll say actually real quick that I think we kind of buried the lead on. I think we mentioned it in passing, but Lily Gladstone, not someone I'm super familiar with, but it will be insane if she's not at least nominated for an Oscar this year. I'm willing to bet she will be.
Yeah.
I'll bet right now that she'll win.
Yeah, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I haven't seen everything yet, but
it's early yet.
No
I feel like something could swing by in December and
Yeah, you never know about these things. I would say that she's definitely going to be nominated. But the qualities of her performance, it's. I had heard, she should be nominated before I went and saw this movie. I saw it like Thursday, actually, when it came out, and I expected a lot more from her, but her character isn't in the movie a ton, or less than I expected. And when she is on screen, she doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but she is a presence. She does draw the eye, and not, you notice her, and especially when she's interacting with her family, when she's not just interacting with Leo, but she's interacting with the family and stuff like that. I think she's really, really good in this. And there's like subtlety in her performance that sometimes you don't really always get, in performances, or you don't notice, but you can tell that there's like a subtlety to her because she doesn't have a ton of lines. And so you're like trying to read into what she's doing. She doesn't have the words to describe what she's doing, What do you guys think?
Yeah. I think she's great. I think she's obviously has the most subtle performance, in my opinion. I think, if, as I was saying earlier, like if the movie's not great for me, it's because of things missing. And I think one of the things that you could argue is that, there could be more character development, I think, for the Osage people in the film in general, and for her. It's not necessary to make it a great movie. It's just like, it's the thing that I could use more of, and just because I'm enjoying everything that I have already.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree with you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but basically that if there's any weak link to this, that it's maybe letting us get to know them as characters, as people more. Mm-hmm. Lily Gladstone can do a lot, and I don't think she has as little dialogue as Chris is making it out to be. Like, I feel like she's good, but I mean, maybe she doesn't have like Robert De Niro amount of lines,
Sure.
Which maybe she should, it could be argued. But basically she does a lot with what she's given, and I could have, gotten to know more characters, some of her peers that were around and living in this community. But I guess to say more, we would need to get into spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we could probably do.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
So, spoilers for Killers of the Flower Moon starting now.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Okay, so basically what I was talking about in non-spoilers was that I would have liked to got to know her family a little bit more, like her sisters that get killed, or, some of the fellow townspeople that get killed. Like, I would have liked a couple scenes with some of them before that happened. Like, we get a little bit, but not enough for me to attach to them or get to know them as people,
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I would have liked a little bit more, but, man, I don't know what else I would have cut in place of that either in a 3.5-hour movie. So,
right.
I don't know.
Well, but most of the feelings about it is served through Lily Gladstone, through Molly,
mm-hmm.
and like her reaction to it.
Right.
I think we get to know the Anna sister pretty well. I think for me, in terms of character development, like I kind of regularly found myself at a loss for what Molly is thinking, because for me, I guess I never quite understood the appeal of Ernest, of Leonardo DiCaprio for her. And like, while to me, it seems she seems intelligent and very smart and capable of figuring out what's going on. to me, I wanted more of understanding where she's coming from and wanting to be married to Ernest and wanting to go along with it. Like, it seems like we kind of go over that pretty quickly because it needs to happen.
Well, that's actually
to the important.
Well, I mean, I think it's twofold. One is something I think the movie doesn't do a great job of explaining, which is that they are not in charge of their own money.
Right.
And they need, I think, a husband to be able to control their money, right?
They have to have.
Okay. They have to have like a man, like a white. I don't know if it's specifically a white man, but I think they have to have someone to run that, right?
What do they call it? They call it a conservatorship or
something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But basically, they don't have access to all their own money, so they need to be married in order to do that.
Yeah, they're seen as children, essentially.
Right. Remember that guy they go to, and they're like, I need more money. And he's like, I don't know about that.
You know, it's actually interesting. Jordan Mason, who runs Cinelinx, which we put our episodes out onto, his mom has a head right of the Osage County, and he posted the paper of it, and he obviously erased all the private details, but on there was like non-competent, and then it was still on there to this day, and it said no, of course, but non-competent would be yes, and then they have to have like somebody to get their money for them,
right?
That's crazy.
So I think I think that's part of the motivation to marry.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I picked up on that. I don't know if it's possible I zoned out, but I guess I just was unsure of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if the movie did a great job of explaining that for people. I kind of had to look that up later and clarify that for myself.
Yeah, because I got like they're restricted with their money, but I just never where that restriction was coming from. And it was like a self-imposed by the mother or something.
I think it's all like when the sisters were talking, and it's like, yeah, he wants money, but he wants to be settled, and he's got a good face and all that. So I think once they got married and he seemed like a nice guy to her and they had children together, I'm sure she was probably having a hard time reconciling that he could also be capable of doing these horrible things.
Sure.
He would have a hard time reconciling that.
Right.
I think that's what the movie's about.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I think she thought he was better at self-reflection than he actually was.
Yeah. That's a whole conversation. I don't know if we want to go there yet.
Sure.
Of
I guess I think I would throw in. I would love a movie that's all about like the Native Americans or something like this. This happened. I think Martin Scorsese has and I think this is obvious, but like he has chosen obviously to use Leonardo DiCaprio's character Ernest. Was it Ernest or Ernst? Anyways,
yeah. Ernest Burkhart.
Burkhart and Robert De Niro's character as
Hale.
Hale as our perspective. We are outsiders looking in this movie into the Osage. So like we don't necessarily know. Sometimes we can really feel the grief, but we're still outside looking in. Like when Lily Gladstone discovers that her sister's died, she lets out this crazy wail, and so we're seeing all this stuff from the outside looking in, and I find that's an interesting choice, I think, in general.
Well, isn't it Scorsese's perspective?
It's absolutely
not Osage, right? Like
and that's what I would say. I would like the Osage perspective would be an interesting one. It's just probably not Scorsese's story to tell.
Yeah, I want that from a different filmmaker.
Yeah,
potentially. But I think too this movie is very pointed in what it's trying to portray and say, and in my opinion, to condemn, I think both white people in the movie and the country's history towards Native Americans, to condemn that the white characters need to have most of the development, I guess. And because I've seen that complaint is that, the white people have more character development.
Yeah, but they're the ones doing the shitty
more
things. They have the most to
we
learn.
need to focus on them because they're the tail here, right?
Yeah, they're the one who needs to learn the lesson. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Hale and Ernst are the story of America.
Ernst.
Ernest. Yeah.
Ernest.
But they're the story of America. Like they are too, especially Ernest is too dumb. Like he just goes along with everybody else. And then there's the rich people, like that are controlling the dumb people. And it's just, that's the story that I think Scorsese's telling.
Yeah. Well, and also it's like the idea that Ernest is the kind of white guy who can put all this toxicity and horribleness out into the world, but somehow compartmentalize it in his brain to where he doesn't really think that it's going to affect him or his family or the people that he loves, right?
Well, the privilege, yeah.
It's like,
It's like I'm married to an Osage person. I'm not prejudiced.
Yeah, I'm not prejudiced, and also none of this is ever going to hurt my family. But why wouldn't it? You know what I mean? So it's like it is hurting his family, and it will. And it's like the idea that the people that he loves are different than the people in general that he doesn't necessarily care for or have an opinion about,
Yeah. I mean, I think what we see through all the development, like it all points to the sort of like callousness and the way that you can view the other
exactly
in a very like sociopathic way, right? Where they're less than human. And if your view into this movie is from the white perspective, I guess like it needs to remain there, I guess. Maybe not needs to, but like I'm okay with it remaining there so that we have that insight into how sociopathic this was, how little they saw these people as human. Because that's what I take away, right? It's like you have two sides, right? You have De Niro who's pulling all the strings, Hale, right, and who's evil, sociopathic, and everything. And then I think the flip side is Ernest. To me, he's kind of like, even like as a white person, whenever the country and the law is on your side, even if you're dumb and easily manipulated, you can still win. Or almost win in this particular case.
Yeah. I mean, but how many people got murdered before anybody even like paid attention? Like they were all written off as suicides when it was obviously, everybody was all the whites were on the same side, and like protecting each other essentially. And that's where, so he could do whatever he wanted. Or like, it's interesting. There's this one character that's testifying at the very end, and he's like, yeah, I hung out with this guy and then I shot him and I went and got a beer, like it didn't mean anything to him. That murder meant nothing to him.
Yeah.
And he didn't fear any repercussion from it either, because,
oh, dude, how crazy was it that one guy that they were interviewing, and he was like thinking about taking the adopted kids or adopting the kids and then killing them if it meant that he could get their head rights. And then the guy's like, I feel like when you tell me that, it makes me think that you're thinking about adopting those kids and killing them. And he's like, well, not if it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do it if I don't get the money.
Yeah, and it's just like, good God.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is representation right there. It's like when the structure and the systems are on your side,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
The things you can get away with. And it's like, how much of generational wealth and sort of thing is like argued as people earned it or whatever, and now you're getting to reap the benefits. But like, when it's rigged for you,
yeah,
you can be as dumb as Leonardo DiCaprio in this movie.
Yeah,
because I think he's pretty dumb.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like I'm not being harsh or like,
yeah, I don't think I don't think he's a smart guy or an introspective guy.
Right. And well, I guess I've seen too some people talk about, empathizing with him, or like, are we supposed to feel sorry for him? Like, cause he's manipulated by Hale. And I don't get an ounce of that.
See,
personally,
that I'm sympathetic with, because that did cross my mind as I was leaving the movie or during the last third of the movie. This idea that is it a good choice to make the character of Ernest Burkhart sympathetic? Is it good to give... I don't want to say he gets a redemption, because he doesn't. But he gets redemptive moments where he understands and reflects on his own deeds, right? At the end. Is it good to give him that when in real life there's not a whole lot of evidence to suggest that he was good?
Yeah. Can you remind me of those redemptive moments?
Well, like whenever he gets the news that his child died and he gets sad, or at the end whenever he's like, I ain't got nothing but regrets. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. To Robert De Niro, who's like, you're going to regret this if he goes against him. And I think at that point in time, the movie has us believe that he probably learned a thing or two. I don't think it redeems him, per se. But I think it shows that he's capable of understanding. Which, up to that point in the movie, I don't know that we got that from him.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever felt sympathetic towards him.
I don't think I did either. But my question is it, do you think that that's what the movie was trying to do? Or what do you think the movie was trying to do with his character by presenting him as someone who did seem to care? Like, he had to be talked into poisoning her, and then they told him that it wasn't really going to hurt her, it was just going to slow her down, etc. So it's like, is he just dumb?
Yes.
Or did he believe that? Or, you know what I mean? Like, basically it's like, in real life, most likely Occam's razor, the dude was like, I'm going to poison my wife.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing to indicate in real life that character had to be talked into doing such a thing. But to give him that scene, to make him not all the way bad, do you think that does a disservice to the true story? Or do you think that just enriches the plot and helps us latch on, much like the same way we got with Henry Hill in Goodfellas, you know? It allows the audience to be somewhat on a character's side until we can no longer be.
Well, like there's the Breaking Bad metaphor too. But oh, go ahead, Justin.
I was to say, like, sure, maybe there's a moment early on of like hoping for the best, of just not knowing anything about this, but I mean,
yeah,
kind of like know that it's not going to be. But I think if there is that, then I think that's a incorrect choice. Like, I don't think we should feel sympathetic for him. I think that, I mean, I don't think it's a right choice if that's what the movie was intending to do. I tend to view it as though even in the end, he turns on his uncle, not necessarily in a redemptive, regretful moment, but because he thinks it's the best way to avoid his comeuppance. Right?
Yeah.
Well, he only does it.
I'm okay through that lens, right? Like to me, whenever he's finally testifies against his uncle and gets him caught and everything, however you want to phrase it, like, it's not doing the right thing. It's trying to avoid jail.
It's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. If he had done it the first time, I would have felt a little bit better about it, you know, but he still backed out of it, you know, the first time. Yeah. Is Hale Satan, and he's just like luring Ernest into hell? Because, and at the very, you know, like, we get that was kind of what I was talking about, the window panes of these demons, you know, like trying to put out this fire or whatever, as he's poisoning his wife. So, like, is this an incremental, like, journey into hell for Ernest as he continues to make these choices? So, like, you have to argue with him to poison his wife, but then he makes the decision to, you know, go along with it, you know, as opposed to standing up for himself. He may not want to, but he still does. So, like, both, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid way to look at it. You know, I think, to kind of go back on my own question and also kind of maybe answer yours, what I would say is that I don't know that those moments that I mentioned earlier are what I would call redemptive moments. I think I use that term because I don't know what else to call them. But I think they are moments to where they are perfectly designed and paced in the script, these moments with Ernest, to make us go along with him all the way up until we can't anymore. We absolutely can't. We keep trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, and he keeps letting us down. Like that scene where it goes back and shows us the PI getting killed.
Right.
In his hotel room. And then the reveal that it was Ernest, and then it just keeps going forward until it breaks. And I think at the end, when he's telling Robert De Niro off, I think you're right. He doesn't necessarily get a redemptive moment, but I think the reason he is portrayed that way character-wise is so that there's a hierarchy of villains. Right? Like, I think the story works better as a movie if the ultimate villain, the guy pulling the strings, is the most evil one in the room. And if Ernest were equally evil to him and also doing his bidding, there wouldn't be a whole lot of shades or of interest in those characters in the way they're being portrayed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would just be two really bad dudes doing bad stuff. So I think it works whenever he acts as kind of the devil on Leonardo DiCaprio's shoulder,
Yeah.
To be like, it's not a big deal. Just slow her down a little bit,
Yeah.
And
I think that
he's evil, but not strong enough to he knows it's wrong, but he's not strong enough to fight against it.
It's going to get spanked in the Masonic Temple again. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting because I think, I'm going to continue going with my hell metaphor, but he goes to, even when he is testifying, the jury is all the people, it's members of the KKK, it's all the people that are going, it's the whole system is rigged. America is hell.
Oh yeah, remember when he's crossing the street and he's says hi to that KKK guy?
Yeah, and he's the guy in charge of the Native Americans' money.
Yeah, he's like, hey, what's up, man?
But yeah, so it's, I don't know, that's an interesting thing. And I think the other thing that's interesting, because I do think Ernest is a representation for America, or at least that's Scorsese's idea for it. Or but there is this love-hate thing. I love you, but I'm also going to do this horrible stuff to you. Does that make sense? So does this both things exist in him at once? I think. Does he love her? That's the question.
That's my take on the movie, right? Is that I think he does kind of love her. I don't think he really loves her, he wants to be a good husband or anything. But I think he's fond of her. I think he loves his children. And I think he's able to do all this. And honestly, like many Americans now, I think his character embodies that compartmentalization that I've been talking about, right? This idea that you can do horrible things for horrible people. You can work for horrible people. You can do things are wrong. They're bad. But as long as they don't hurt you or the people that you actually care about, you can dissociate from them. You can just not think about it.
Yeah.
You can keep going down your current path. And I think that's what a lot of people do in real life.
This story happened a long time ago, so I have nothing to do with it. That's the duality.
Sure.
Even though I am still benefiting from the results of this story. Does that make sense? That's the duality of it.
Yeah. Were you about to say something, Justin?
Yeah, just I guess where's that line for the character, right? Whenever it's the idea that this isn't going to hurt my family. Well, the sisters, his in-laws, I guess, are being murdered, and his wife is being affected by that.
I don't think he cares about it that way. I don't think he cares if she's sad.
Right. This is more immediate family.
Right. I think it's only the people that he cares about, not the people that they care about collectively as a family.
Well, and I think at the very beginning of this movie, when he's talking to Hill at the very beginning, there's two things that this character, Ernest, cares about: money and sex, And so, if he's not getting one, or if he's not having sex with you, he wants money from you. And that's what he's getting from murdering the rest of the family. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, I don't think I think the real Ernest Burkhart was probably just a POS who had no...
The fake one is too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm saying way worse in real life is what I imagine.
So more aware.
Yeah. More self-aware.
Less less manipulated, because I could see an argument where you view his easy manipulation by Hale as sympathetic, right? Or
I think the average audience member is going to go into this movie wanting to be on Leonardo DiCaprio's side.
Sure.
And I think the movie plays with that for the first half.
Yeah. Well, I think the tougher realization to come to is that, like, whether you're complicit or pulling the strings.
Well, sure. And he's not like Gomer Pyle. He's not so dumb, like that. I'm like, Hale is taking advantage of him. Does that make sense? He's still making his own decisions.
Right. Yeah.
He's still smart enough. It's just like sometimes even the decision trees to do the wrong thing are dumb. Like he chooses the wrong things to do, in order to accomplish those bad things,
Well, do you guys believe that his emotions whenever his child died and he got told in the jail cell that his child died, do you believe those emotions were real? Do you believe that he loved his kids?
Yeah. I do, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you believe he loved her, though, Molly?
No.
You don't believe he loved her at all? Like, do you think he was fond of her? Do you think he disliked her?
I think he liked her, but
okay.
I think the seed to me was planted in that early conversation with Hale, where he's basically coercing him into liking her because, and sprinkling in that plus you'll get money. He's like, oh, she's good looking, she's smart. Oh, and by the way, you'll get money. And I feel like he's almost manipulated by Hale into going after her.
And there's certainly
it probably wouldn't have occurred to him to do that.
Yeah. I think that there's a way that a person can, like, two truths that contradict each other can exist in the same person, if that makes sense. And you don't have to have like a split personality either. So I do think he loved her, at least as the story is presented to us. I'm not like, but I also think he was capable of horrible violence.
Well, I just don't know that love means a lot to a guy like that.
Sure.
Yeah. Or that the love, I feel like the love comes from manipulation, like Hale,
Okay,
because Hale's not acting, Hale's not being openly, like he doesn't care about her to him. Like everything he's done is every piece of advice he gives to Ernest.
He's like, you gotta take care of her. Yeah.
Is like about, it's about taking care of her. But it's about doing the best for her.
Yeah.
And the family, by the way.
Right. Well, and also I think I don't quite remember, but isn't there also the element of like, look, if you help me with these horrible murders, the money starts flowing the right way, which is to you and your family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like also like, yeah, I'm murdering your aunt, but I'm also providing you more money, children. Like that's also kind of like an element of it as well.
Yeah. I think there's a suggestion at one point that the money could not go to him and Molly, to their family at all, if he doesn't do what he's supposed to be doing.
Well, yeah, towards the end. And I think that's the point where he's like, I'm going to testify because, Hale wants to, there's a possibility that Hale will have me killed in order to get the money.
Yeah. Oh man, the scene where they announce that they're having a baby is maybe like one of the best scenes in terms of like De Niro's performance.
De Niro's
and just
really good in this.
Like, yeah. I don't know if this is the kind of movie where it's like fun to watch the villain do anything. I wouldn't really call it that.
It's fun to watch De Niro do great work. Because he doesn't do a lot of
from
great
that
movies.
perspective. Yeah, not these
not
days.
anymore.
Yeah, that scene is really great, and like watching his reaction of like, oh, okay,
yeah,
like what great news this is.
Yeah,
that was entertaining. So yeah, do we want to talk about the end?
Yes,
like I think that's
the coda, right?
Sure.
The radio show?
Yeah, the radio show and Scorsese reading the obituary.
And Jack White.
And Jack White, most importantly. I mean, I kind of read the radio show as somewhat of condemnation caricature sort of thing of obsession with true crime, and having that be more of a entertainment, and sometimes forgetting that these are real people.
Yeah, but isn't that the movie trying to have its cake and eat it too, in a sense? Or could it be argued?
Well, I thought that. And then Scorsese steps up to read the obituary, right? Mm-hmm. And I found, I guess, like great weight on that idea with the final lines where he says, no mention of the murders was made in her obituary, right?
Yeah.
So I take that as Scorsese being the one to read that, is like the newspaper, the media of the time, even so soon afterwards, is like forgetting about this.
Yeah, willfully
right?
forgetting. Yeah.
Yeah. And my job as director, I guess, my purpose,
what draws me to this story,
is to make this known, is to include the mention in history of this part of history, so that it is known and isn't left out.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I think I kind of came away with something different, and I haven't seen anybody else like in reading reviews and stuff like that come away with the same thing. So I'm not exactly sure it's right, but to me, the radio show is like so like smarmy and taking advantage of like the Osage like situation. It's just telling the story in like the worst way possible, and then and for also obviously from the white perspective, you know, like, or creating the FBI, and then you have Martin Scorsese stepping in, and he's like, the story still isn't told. I'm still a white man telling it from an outsider's perspective. And so there's like almost a condemnation of himself in that way. I think your reading is right too, but he's like, look, this isn't, I'm still taking advantage of, you know, like I'm still a white man taking advantage of the Osage Nation because I'm
part of this.
Yeah, I am part of this. I'm like the radio show, and telling a story that's not mine to tell. Exactly. That's kind of what I came away with. So yes, but I haven't seen any other corroboration towards that. So
it could be him owning up to his part in that circus, but I think that last line resonates with me enough to have both the self-awareness and to maybe say I'm trying to do more.
Yeah, I'm trying to do better. I am also part of this circus, but I'm trying to do better. I don't know.
Yeah, Mike, any thoughts?
I mean, I think I agree with you, Justin.
Okay. What more needs to be said? That's all I need to hear.
Yeah. Now you've betrayed me too, Mike.
Oh, no.
Both of you.
I think it's interesting that the last framing device is all through like a Lucky Strike ad, and how they like shamelessly add advertisements into the context of like the reenactments they're doing. And it kind of gives it this ugly entertainment sheen, right? Like, I think at one point in like the little dialogue that the two actors say to each other, like, "Won't you like my Lucky Strike?" or whatever. You know, like they even like drop the brand name of like the sponsor.
Yeah,
in a way that just feels like really shameless and gross. So it's like, I think it's interesting that even at the time, the people who will be hearing about this have to hear about it through this like really commercialized, like true crime kind of entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Definitely very pointed at true crime as entertainment, in my opinion.
Sure.
I mean, podcasts are full of those sort of like sponsors
and the system that profits off of that kind of thing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the final shot, that sort of overhead shot of the dancing group, I took that as representation of, I guess I took it as a single flower, creating a single flower, and there was the section earlier where they're talking about like the flower moon and how there's just is it like all the petals or all the flowers floating?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Being reduced now, and that's obviously modern, right? That final shot it's reduced to the single flower, right? Like this prominent, thriving Osage people who found this oil and were set to thrive. Because of all of this, and it being taken away. And in general, white people in America whittling down these Native American tribes. We go from the thing where there's so much flowers and petals that it's called the flower moon to a single flower.
Oh, yeah.
That's my take, my reading.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I don't have any further thoughts to add to that, but...
All right, then.
Yeah.
Once again, agree. I'm happy to hear.
The flower moon is, in theory, being killed.
Yeah.
In the title, so why not?
True. Who are the killers of the flower moon? That's the question.
I think it's interesting.
It's white people.
Yes. I think it's interesting that Scorsese changed this from the book to give more presence to the Molly character and the relationship between Ernest and Molly.
Sure.
So I think it's interesting that, a lot of our discussion and a lot of discussion around this movie has been the Native American representation. But I wonder and I haven't read the book. I've always wanted to, but I never have.
I've read the first few chapters.
I want to now.
Well, I wonder what it was before he decided to make that change.
It's more about the FBI. I think there was an original idea, or at least this is stuff I've read, where like Leonardo DiCaprio was playing the Jesse Plemons character. And so the story was more about the FBI coming in and solving the murders. Like that's a white savior story, right? Like, oh, here we are to save the Osage people. So that was more of the story. I like this idea much better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a change for the better, even though fair enough that some people would argue that the Osage still don't get the time that they deserve, and aren't as fully fleshed out, aren't quite real characters. And I totally understand that. Even if I think the movie is at its most effective doing what it does.
Sure. Well, and the thing is, there's room to tell those stories, right? Like, hopefully, if this movie is a success, which I don't know if financially it will be, but if it generates some conversation, maybe there'll be room to tell those stories from people who, have more to say than someone like Scorsese. Scorsese can make a good crime movie, and it sounds like he was attracted to the crime, that is the story, that is the movie, So I would like to see the same story told from a different perspective, and I hope that one day, that gets told. But like you guys said, maybe Scorsese doesn't necessarily feel like it's his place to tell all of that. But also equally, it's a 3.5 hour movie, and you can't tell the stories of the crimes without telling the stories of the crime, So I don't know if there's a right way or wrong way, but at least he seemed like he was aware of it and tried to take actions into making it not just a movie about a bunch of white criminals.
Sure.
Yeah. Could have done more, probably, but, we got what we got.
Yeah. And as a movie, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I agree. It's a shame that Scorsese doesn't really do director's cuts, because I would like to see a longer version of this movie.
Do you think there's a longer version of this movie?
I mean, I heard that. Wasn't there like talk of the rough cut being really long? I mean, there's always talk of rough cuts being really long.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. That's a whole nother argument. When Napoleon comes out, we'll talk about that, because there's already there's a 5-hour cut of this movie.
I mean, Ridley Scott's director's cuts are usually better than his theatrical cuts, though.
Yeah, just release the director's cut, then release the one that's better.
I mean, I agree.
But
he may not be in charge of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the studio making that choice, unfortunately.
Yeah. Who is doing Napoleon? Is that
Ridley Scott.
No, I know, but what studio? Is it Netflix or is it like?
No, it's not Netflix. I think it's one of the traditional legacy studios.
Okay.
No, maybe it's Apple. Fuck, I don't know.
Oh, it might be Apple.
Might be Apple.
Because then Apple would be like, yeah, let's just release that one. Anyways, that's a whole nother discussion for another day.
Yeah,
indeed it
this
is.
This one's probably gone on long enough, unless there's any crucial stuff we need to touch on.
No, strong Scorsese. I like where he's at this point in his career. I hope he's got at least a couple more in him.
I'm hoping for at least one more. But I also hope at this point he does whatever makes him happy. You know,
seems like
joined
he is.
Letterboxd. Yeah,
I think he said recently that the last movie he did for them was Shutter Island.
Oh wow!
And he said that in retrospect he probably should have just done Silence instead. But you know what? I think Shutter Island is pretty good as far as one for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got away with one.
Oh yeah, that
There
reminds
are
me.
worse ones for
Before
them.
we end this thing, you said Scorsese can make bad movies. Name one.
Who said that?
You did.
Well, no. I mean, I think it's possible that he could make a bad movie. I don't remember what context I said this in.
You said we get new Scorsese movies, whether it's good or bad, it's usually interesting. When has he ever put out something that you would
at the very
qualify as
beginning?
bad?
Yeah. Where's the bad but interesting?
Okay, so I'm not saying that he has put out a bad movie, but I'm saying I would like the idea. It doesn't matter. For me, even if he puts out a bad movie, I'd still be interested.
But when has he ever done that?
I'm saying in the future, if he were to put
theory.
out a bad movie, I would still be happy about it because I think it would be interesting to watch.
Now, there are some Scorsese movies that I don't care for as much as the others, but here's the thing: is like even the weak ones, I don't know which ones I would actually feel comfortable labeling as bad.
Yeah, I think he is the closest to like Stanley Kubrick. Oh, he's put out a ton more movies.
I don't think he's as thoughtful as someone like Kubrick.
I don't know. Well, at least visually speaking, there's like stuff in his movies that rivals Kubrick. I don't know. I'd have to think about it more, but that's just kind of like a master. As a master of cinema, I think he rivals Kubrick. Who has been a master of cinema? You know, Kubrick, Scorsese. You know, like
Spielberg.
In between those two, who's been a master of cinema? That like,
I mean, between Spielberg and Scorsese, give me Scorsese.
Spielberg.
Give me Scorsese.
No. Did I say Spielberg? I meant
you did not. I did. I said Spielberg.
Oh. Yeah, Spielberg is good. He's more popcorn heavy. Anyways, this is a whole other story too. But he's more popcorn.
Yeah, he's more commercial.
Yeah, but I do like his stuff.
Scorsese's one of the greats. If you're making a top 5 of all time list, I think there's an argument that he belongs on there.
Kurosawa, Kubrick.
Are we just going to hear your top 5 right now? Let's do this.
Yeah.
It's going to go for another hour.
Yeah, we don't have the time. That's another episode. Maybe we'll do that one day.
Yeah.
Maybe. Put that in our back pocket.
But if we do it, we all have to agree on a top 5. As opposed to each doing individual ones, and so we can fight it out.
So we each need to choose 5 and then choose 5 from that?
No, essentially. 15? So we each,
But probably less since there might be some overlap. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We should end this show right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, this episode is done, right?
I think so.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, so much for listening. As always, thanks Jake Wagner-Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, go to soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right. Stay tuned to this feed. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Our next episode will be a casually Criterion over another Martin Scorsese film. It's almost like this was planned. And that is going to be Raging Bull. I don't know what spy number it is, but it's in the Criterion collection. So
it's newish.
Yeah.
Over 1,000.
Yeah.
The Raging Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got they had the flash sale, so I just got my DVD.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I've had the 4K for a bit, and I haven't opened it yet. So actually, I put it in just when I got my PS5 to test out the 4K.
How'd it look?
It looked great. I skimmed through the first 10 minutes.
I'm jelly that you guys are going to get to watch it in 4K, and I'm not.
Spine 1,134, by the way.
Yeah. We've done 1,333 of these, or whatever it is. No, we haven't.
No, we haven't. We're not doing it in order.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Chris, say goodbye.
Goodbye!
Bye.